Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. This is being filmed on Tuesday, September the 29th in the Memorial Arena in Victoria, BC. I'd like to start by thanking our volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes this program happen every week. The first part of Citizens Forum is always the Walt and Jack show. So Walter, I'll start off, and this is a story that you provided. I'll just show, it says Canada's ambassador to Jordan linked to ISIS girls. Canada's ambassador to Jordan linked to ISIS girls. And basically it's the story of the three teenage girls who became quite famous, who ran away from home in London, England, I think, and then were smuggled across they went to Turkey, were smuggled across the border from Turkey into Syria. And I mean, it was a world famous story. And the story is that Stephen Harper is linked to these girls. So here's the story. The Turkish government claims that the Canadian embassy in Jordan aided the trafficking of British-born children and at least 17 others into the hands of ISIS in the middle of a war zone in Syria. The Ottawa Citizen has reported that the man who was recently caught by Turkish police trafficking the British-born girls between Turkey and Syria and into the hands of ISIS was CSIS agent Mohammad Al Rashid. Reports claim that Al Rashid reported to Bruno Saccomanni, Prime Minister Stephen Harper's personal security guard a few years earlier, who he then appointed as the ambassador to Jordan in 2013. The chain of command is quite clear. CSIS agent Al Rashid in Turkey reported to the ambassador in Jordan, Mr. Saccomanni, who reported to Stephen Harper. Harper appointed Saccomanni, who in turn recruited Al Rashid. These revelations from the Turkish government indicate Canada's Jordanian embassy collaborated with ISIS, an organization labeled as terrorists by the Canadian government. This leaves Canadians baffled about exactly what Harper and his Conservative government are trying to achieve. Is it a war on terrorists or a war using terrorists? And here we are in the middle of an election, Walt, where this is such an important issue. You know, when Harper said the other day, the enemy isn't CSIS, the enemy is ISIS. Well, you know, the whole situation is crazy.
Yeah, and you know, the commentary now, the most recent commentary by the pundits, they are admitting that the West is funding ISIS, but it all seems to be inadvertent. That the money is getting there, the guns are getting there, but nobody meant to do it, sort of thing. But why I wanted you to read that, because it is quite, you know, it's quite remarkable when you think about it, that a CSIS agent that was Harper's personal bodyguard in Ottawa becomes the Canadian ambassador in Jordan. So he goes from a security guard to an ambassador, and he also is in charge of Iraq, because we don't have an embassy there. So the facade of any genteel facade that these embassies are supposed to be there just for diplomatic relations, you know, is completely tossed out, because we're sending a secret agent there to do the job. And that's so remarkable in itself. And then to see what happened right afterwards with the running of people across the border. Now, the Turkish government was making these claims. It was printed in the Ottawa Citizen. It was printed in the Toronto Star.
Globalresearch.ca.
Well, globalresearch.ca really put the meat on the bones here, and I refer to them in that article. But this is a mainstream, real story. This is not a conspiracy theory. This actually did happen. And the remarkable thing is, after listening to the so-called debate between the leaders last night, that was without Elizabeth May, the leadership debate for the prime ministership. This is an issue. This is one story that could blow Harper right out of the water. This would be the end of his career in any other world except the one we're living in which you get these three guys standing up there stoically, you know, not paying attention to what is reality, really. And we're supposed to buy that line that somehow or other this didn't happen, apparently, because they don't want to talk about it. And that's the world we're living in now.
That's the most amazing thing, that we have a federal election going on now in which the truth is not allowed to be spoken. The entire election is a sham. And both you and I bought the Times Colonist today in order to, I think, show this story. And it's about the Liberal candidate just north of Victoria. Island Liberal candidate resigns after 9/11 critique. And basically what she said is that she thought the official story was a lie. And this was a few years ago. Well, the official story is a lie. I mean, there's a group of 1,000, more than 1,000 architects and engineers, it's called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, who say it's impossible for the buildings to have fallen the way the official story says. It's just not possible. That's one of dozens of insane inconsistencies in the official story. But if you dare to say that, you cannot run in a federal election in Canada. So, I mean, that's the state of our nation right now. It's pathetic, and it's not the country we think we live in. That's clear. We live in a, I don't know what.
Well, some people call it fascism, Jack. It isn't too far from it. You know, there's a facade that we can exchange ideas and everything, right up to the point where they become important ideas. And then if those ideas are not part of the narrative that the status quo wants, or the powers that run the networks, you can't say it, or your career is going to be shortened. Now, you can't have democracy when freedom of expression is suppressed. We have to be always vigilant to allow ideas. Remember when Ert Sundal and some of these Holocaust deniers were at it? I supported them. Come on out and say whatever you want. If it's a crazy idea, somebody else will refute it. We want to hear all these ideas, and sometimes we have to listen to some pretty repugnant views in order to maintain our liberties. This is a very serious business. I'm really concerned with that. This is a new trend in politics. They had it before. Harper was running it that way for a few years, but now the NDP and the Liberals are just about the same.
Yeah. And instead of discussing those issues, this is what else we have in the Times Colonist, and not only the Times Colonist, but all the media, especially the television and radio. Crime and violence, unknown rescuer halted sex assault at UVic. Why is that front page news and leading the news on CFAX? It's constant, you know. They fill the news with crime and violence, and they never have time to talk about the loss of our democracy, or the fact that we all have to eat genetically contaminated foods, whether we want to or not, and the fact that our healthcare system is being deliberately destroyed so it can be privatized. That's why people have to wait. People have to wait because corporate Canada wants you and us to suffer enough so that you and us will allow our healthcare system to be privatized. I mean, like, they're willing to kill people in order to get the money that they want from our healthcare system. It's being deliberately destroyed. That's never mentioned, and they fill us instead with crime and violence, never ending. And you can't, you know, you mentioned democracy. You cannot have democracy if you don't have a free press. We lost our free press a long time ago, and the democracy is, I would say, gone.
We don't want candidates looking over their shoulders and wondering if they had an extra glass of wine sometime and wrote something on their Facebook. You know, this is just ridiculous. You know, it's just like, we know the message they're sending out is that, you know, we don't have freedom of expression. The parties are telling us that now, clearly, that you're not going to be able to participate. So what's going to happen in these upcoming elections as the views, the acceptable views, get narrower and narrower? Like you have the debate last night with the leaders. All I could see was, I couldn't see a debate. I saw three guys that all agree on pretty well everything that's important. And they pretty well agree on everything that's bad. You know, there's nothing good happening here. It's like, it's hard to pick between them because of especially foreign policy issues and warfare issues, and they're not rocking the boat. They're just pretty well going along with whatever the large corporate interests and the warmongers want to do. That's what those three parties are offering us. And at the same time, they're telling us that we can't say anything about it. It's going to become a time when just saying, hey, I disagree with you guys, will become a threat to national security or something. It's very dangerous times we're living in.
Yeah, that's it. It is dangerous times. To me, there are solutions out there. We've got to build an independent media, and we've got to really focus on building democracy. And I mean, the definition I like of democracy is from the Greek words, demos, the people, and kratia, to rule. It means the people rule. Not the party leaders, not the corporations, not the corporate-owned media, not the business community, but the people. And our whole democracy, our whole form of government should be about the politician, the government, the people we elect, making sure we're fully and well informed on the important issues of the day, and then finding out what we want, and then trying to do that. And that's the exact opposite of what we have now.
And we send a representative to Ottawa. We don't send a political party to Ottawa. We send somebody that represents the majority of our views, and they go to Ottawa and see if they can hash it out with enough people to pass some legislation. That's the way it's supposed to work.
And I think if we had that, we'd have a much better country in many, many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say a word about Rifflandia, to bring it just down to a very local issue. Rifflandia, to me, it's many things to many people, but one thing it certainly is bullying. It's the bullying of thousands of people who were told by the city government of Victoria and all the businesses that are involved in Rifflandia. They're told, we're going to turn our music up for 2 or 3 or 4 days.
Just so you should introduce like what Rifflandia is.
Oh yeah, for those who don't know, it's a very, very loud rock concert that takes place in Royal Athletic Park. And it's, I mean, they just crank the music up. It's like there's very few restrictions. In fact, they waive the restrictions that there are for this to take place. And it's bullying. Again, amongst many other things, especially when there's an arena 2 blocks away where the loud music could be played, which made me think about our schools and bullying in the schools, because what the schools really are is they're a place where children are forced to go into a situation where the people who run the show know they're going to be bullied and then don't protect them. It's like a deliberate thing. And it happens to a lot of kids, and I think that's what the people who run the country want. They want us bullied, so we're kind of more subservient.
Yeah, it all depends what your tastes are. A lot of people might love to hear rock and roll for free within the 2 miles of that stadium. Like I would be with you. I think it's noise pollution. It's something that you haven't welcomed, and I think we should have more rights in that area. And there should be controls of that sort of thing happening, and I agree with that. We should try to put them inside.
Walt, we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.